Again, I thank you for this opportunity. We have so much to cover in this, what I call the one long continuum, as I've connected dots, the dots. And again, as a preface, my point is and remains I'm not looking at all this through a political lens, because what is happening is beyond just simply politics. And again, there is no statute of limitation on murder nor on treason, because that is what we are dealing with. And murder and treason isn't limited to one political party. And it's from that context I have been and continue to present my discussion remarks, including today's. And as a U.S. constitutional oath taker, I took an oath to support and defend one nation and only one nation, our nation, the United States of America, against enemies, foreign and domestic, foreign or domestic. So, are you ready? What I've done is prepared a PowerPoint called President John F. Kennedy Assassination Attempt, November 22nd, 1963, to assist with this further deep dive, including applicable visual photos, video clips to accompany my remarks, even deeper than my previous remarks. At this time, I've broken it out into a nine-part series, but let's see where it takes us. Oh, it's going to be very interesting, all the twists and turns and where we end up. Surprises and aha moments all along the way. So, are you ready? As we now go to part one, page one of the PowerPoint to start our journey. Okay, now let me start with this. My conjecture is and remains JFK was not assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. What was proven on November 22nd, 1963, at that time, was the legal definition of conspiracy, the attempt to assassinate the President of the United States of America. With that, though I do not agree with all the conclusions made by in this and these applicable videos, at this time, these videos are the best I have seen to date regarding November 22nd, 1963, and events surrounding it. This first video, JFK Truth, the Mob CIA, and the 8 Paid Assassins YouTube video, publication date May 11, 2017, 1 hour, 25 minutes, and 6 seconds long. Now, when I first became aware of this video on Thursday, September 30th, 2021, I couldn't identify who published this other than based on the accent assumed a British producer. That said, just recently in July 2022, I have since identified the publisher as Francis R. Connolly, since this video appears to be a spin-off, shorter version made from his longer video called JFK to 9/11, Everything is a Rich Man's Trick, made in 2014 of 3 hours, 27 minutes, and 55 seconds by Francis Richard Connolly. My point is that now I am now aware of both of these videos. Okay, so I want to begin with this. As we proceed, I want to hear from you and your audiences, your questions, comments, aha moments along the way to make sure I've already addressed the question later in the series and to pulse where you are as well, particularly your aha moments, okay? So I will now bring up this first shorter video, JFK Truth, the Mob CIA, and the 8 Paid Assassins YouTube video with a publication date of May 11, 2017, and I will begin to show portions thereof accordingly. Patience as I bring this first one up. I will begin by playing from 39:18 to 40:45.
While the hearse was ordered to the rear to unload. But that was where the simplicity ended. The FBI men and many other witnesses recalled a scene of absolute mayhem in which no one seemed to know what was going on, and military men were rushing around everywhere exchanging anecdotes about decoy ambulances they had been ordered to follow, which had become high-speed chases around the hospital grounds as these vehicles raced away. It seems this confusion was created with the intention of misleading both the press and the large respectful crowd which had gathered on the lawn. People were asking each other which ambulance contained the president's body. Then a rumour started that it was coming by helicopter, but which one? Everyone watching that night recalls the air was filled with them, and the FBI men also told Lifton that in the midst of all this mayhem, they helped to carry the casket inside. This was flatly denied by the team of Navy men who said they did it alone. It is therefore perfectly clear that two bodies were brought to the morgue separately whilst confusion reigned. And it was now that the plotters themselves became confused by the mayhem they had created, because they left J.D. Tippett's cadaver in the wrong casket. It should have been switched and gone into the autopsy room in the large, expensive casket used in Dallas.
Okay. Now keep that chaos, confusion on the ground in mind, particularly the numerous military helicopters, like a U.S. military operation even, right? So what possibility does that make feasible then? A U.S. military operation? Perhaps even an escape plan strategy for the not assassinated, very live President of the United States of America, JFK, that was flown back to Washington, D.C., lying in a coffin even, to be whisked away either by ambulance or U.S. military helicopter. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to this portion of this video at 37.5 to 38.02.
Liggett performed this ghoulish service while the aircraft he was on, Air Force 2, went through the usual procedure of leapfrogging Air Force 1 to arrive at Andrews Air Force Base slightly earlier.
Air Force 2 leapfrogged a very internal procedural detail relatively few and in the know would be aware of before and at that time, right? Don't you agree? And note, Air Force 2 arrives earlier than Air Force 1. So what possibility does that make feasible? Thus, making this chaos an exit strategy. Plan A, exit plan, being an ambulance and all the decoys. Plan B, being a U.S. military helicopter and all the decoys, deception abound amongst all the chaos, and with Air Force 2 leapfrog arriving first minutes prior to the decoy Air Force 1. So can you see it? The possibility, the feasibility, the capability, the plan B exit. So where would a U.S. military helicopter carrying their very much alive and well President JFK fly to without it looking suspicious? Given JFK was U.S. Navy, my conjecture would be to a Commonwealth of Virginia, U.S. military, U.S. Navy installation. Norfolk, perhaps. Virginia Beach, perhaps. My conjecture, U.S. Navy, U.S. Marine Corps headquarters in Quantico, Virginia. A successful, undetected escape for the very much not assassinated, very much alive President of the United States of America, JFK, and perhaps accompanied by the live, real First Lady Jackie Kennedy? Perhaps, but I have more thoughts on that coming up later. JFK flown back to Washington, D.C. on Air Force 2, not Air Force 1, and I would assume, though possible, not while lying in a coffin. Okay, so now I want to go back to this. We're going to play from 2912.
One of the Dallas medical team, Dr. Charles Crenshaw, a junior doctor at that time, vividly recalls what the first professionals in the Kennedy killing had to deal with.
The second wound was here in the throat, right above the necktie. It was a small opening, very small, 3 to 5 millimeters, about the size of your little finger. I looked at the wound again. I wanted to know and remember this the rest of my life. And the rest of my life, I will always know he was shot from the front.
And also described the portion missing from the rear of Kennedy's head after the impact of the frangible bullet, which hit him in the right temple.
The bullet struck about where and passed about where?
From here,
Right.
through.
And taking out
The back, or the occipital part. The back of your head.
So Parkland doctor, Dr. Charles Crenshaw, adamantly states regarding the small throat wound, quote, "The second wound was here in the throat, right above the necktie," end quote. Quote, "It was a small opening, very small, 3 to 5 millimeters, about the size of your little finger," end quote. And the frontal head wound, quote, "From here through, taking it out, the back of the occipital part of the back of your head, that was gone. This was gone," end quote. Okay, so now I want to continue on from here at 3012 to 3036 with the first press conference.
This was gone.
Approximately 1 o'clock Central Standard Time today here in Dallas. He died of gunshot wound.
This information soon made its way to the media. And this is why, at the very first press conference, Press Secretary Malcolm Kilduff correctly described the cause of death and direction of the shot. Yep.
Press Secretary Malcolm Kilduff correctly identified the direction of the head wound shot, but did not mention the second wound, the throat wound, at all. So the press secretary was he not aware? Or wasn't he told about it? I wonder why not. If not, must be something larger at play. A U.S. military black operation, perhaps? So then, I wonder if it was even JFK, or possibly Jackie for that matter, in the presidential limo at that time on November 22nd, 1963, to begin with. Instead, maybe body doubles? At minimum for the president, if not for both. Possibly, but we'll get back to this. But what we now know for sure is the body has to have, as what was reported by the Parkland doctor, the small throat wound and a frontal head wound. With that, I now go to page 2 of the PowerPoint and pull up this next applicable video. Recently made after and since my public and on the record conjecture that JFK was not assassinated in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963. This video was posted on May 14, 2022 by Jay Wildner and Ryder Lee, called, quote, "The New Look at the Zapruder Film and Assassination of JFK." And again, though there is lots of which I agree and much I have learned, I also have many differences of opinion, other possibilities for consideration highlighted throughout this video. The most significant I want to highlight at this time is going to be starting from 20:30 to 29 minutes.
And then we have our splice as soon as it goes by the freeway sign. And then the car comes out from behind the sign, and Kennedy does this. And this is where everyone thinks that he got shot in the neck while he's behind the sign. And then I know you guys aren't going to believe this, but he goes, as his right hand, right cheek, he goes like this, and he kind of obscures the whole thing by putting his other hand here like this, kind of obfuscates it a little bit. And then he goes like this. And then there's something on his face. It's right here. And it's protruding. You can see the shadow of it.
Yeah, you can clearly see that his face is different whenever he has his hands up and he's messing with his face. It's different. There's something on his face. Yeah.
Yep. And for about 4 seconds or so, he just sits there with this thing on his face, not really doing anything. There's no blood coming out of his neck anywhere. I'm a hunter, and you want to hit the neck. You're hunting elk or a deer. That's where you want it, because that way you don't have to chase it down, because it's just going to bleed out in 30 seconds or so. And if you've been shot in the neck, back or front, it would go blasting out like that. The pressure right here is so huge on the human body that literally the car would be covered with blood. Connolly and his wife, the people in front of him, would be just, it'd be like a shower of blood. Or if it was facing down, the whole back seat of the car would be just, it would be everywhere. You cannot believe how much a neck wound bleeds out quickly too. He would have been 30% bled out in the 5 seconds afterwards if he'd been shot in the neck, but there's no blood at all. So then, so for 4 or 5 seconds, he sits there in the car, kind of looking strange with this thing on his neck, on his head, on his cheek. And then all of a sudden, Jackie kind of perks up, and she kind of comes over and she leans over. And then Abraham Zapruder does a really odd thing, which a cameraman would never do. He's got the president. He's now the closest the president is to his camera, and he lifts the camera up and jams Jackie and JFK down to the bottom of the frame, so they're all suddenly they're cut off, like right here, which is a very odd thing for a cameraman to do. Anybody, even an amateur, would always keep them center frame. And then you see this like movement by Jackie, and on a good version, you can actually see that something moves between her hand and that thing. And I'll tell you what's going on. That's when it goes off. That's when all of a sudden JFK looks like he got shot. And he flies backwards, just like Oliver Stone says in his movie, and then he immediately sinks down below the car. Now, Jackie, who is right there when the bullet smashed into her husband's head, saw it firsthand within a foot of her face. Does she go down to the car and crouch down on the bottom of the seat to avoid bullets flying? No.
That's what you would think would happen.
That's what I would do.
That would be the standard reaction to do.
Absolutely. Everybody dives down when there's bullets flying. So, and everybody did, by the way, because they were lighting fireworks off. But anyway, so Jackie starts scrambling to the hood of the car, the back hood of the car. And at the same time, a Secret Service guy jumps up on the back of the car. They're both kind of coming towards each other. And then it looks like the Secret Service guy picks something up and gives it to Jackie. She retrieves whatever it is. Satisfied, she goes back and sits down in the car.
Yeah, that was Clint Hill that was on the back of the car, right?
Yep.
And he was there in like record time too. Like soon as like JFK got hit, he was like right there on the back of the car. I noticed that by watching the Zapruder film.
Yeah. Another interesting thing is that right when Jackie's attending Jack and then the thing goes off, right? Every single person in that car, the driver, the guy sitting next to the driver, Connolly, his wife, and Jackie are all looking straight at JFK at that second. The only time in the entire driving in the 28 seconds are they all looking at him, and they just happen to be looking at him right at the right moment, right, to see it. So that in itself is a coincidence, quite a coincidence. So what is going on here? So what's going on here is, and I know this is going to shock you, and I know the conspiracy theorists hate my guts, and the government theorists already hated my guts. So I might as well just get in for all the hate. So just bring it on. In 1953, I can't remember the name of the movie now. I'll remember it's a Western that was made. Was the first use of a Hollywood device called a squib. A squib is a device that simulates a gunshot wound used in movies. Now, when 1960,
Yeah, it's like a prosthetic explosive device that's used to simulate a wound. Yeah.
So you want a wound to blow up here on your body, right? You're out chopping wood, and the bad guys come and they shoot you. And, oh, you know. So what you do is you take. They're manufactured professionally, but mostly in Hollywood. They got guys who do this themselves. They make it each custom made for each individual thing that they need it for, because you have different, you want it to blow up here, it's going to be different than one here. And so what they do is it has a thin plate that's maybe like 4 times the thickness of aluminum foil, right? It's just a little plate that's just enough, and that's designed to protect the actor from getting hurt. Okay, then the next layer is gunpowder, and on each end are 2 little igniters. Okay, they just put out a spark, right? And then over the top of that, you put your fake blood. And then what they like to do is, we used to do is, we would crumble styrofoam up and then stick styrofoam into the fake blood. We'd cook it all in, and so that way it looked like bone matter flying out. And then you take like a prophylactic, like a condom would work really good, and a flesh-colored condom, whatever a race your actor is, you get that kind of color, and you stretch that over the whole thing, and then on the very bottom you put stickum, and you stick it right here, and then there's a string. In the old days it was a string. Now we have a remote. You hit a remote and it'll go blam. But in the old days, you had to have a string that would pull to light it. So you strategically place the wound. So you could get a string to go around the back and then go down, and a technician would be down there and pull at the right time. And in Kennedy's case, he puts the squib on, and Jackie comes over and pulls the string. And that's why they optically had to move them down into the bottom of the frame.
So her arm would just be right out of frame. So you can barely see her arm in the Zapruder film, in that cleared up version, the MK Davis film, and it looks like she's pulling down, but you can't see her entire arm. Yeah.
Yeah. Then that would be, and by the way, Dan Rather, they took Dan Rather in. He was a young, intrepid reporter in Dallas at the time, and they took him in. He was the guy they decided to show the Zapruder film in 1963 to. All right. Then he would tell us what was on there. All right. So he came out and said, oh, yeah, awful, terrible film. He got shot in the head. And, oh, my God. Right. And they were, oh, Dan Rather, he's a credible guy. Sure. We'll listen to him. So for years, that was what it was. And then in 1974, Geraldo Rivera, and he was a young guy at the time, he got a copy, a poor res copy. And he showed it on late night show that he had. I can't remember what it was. Hello America or something. Anyway, I remember, man, I was all excited, and my God, I'm going to see this Zapruder film for the first time, right? And so I remember that. I got my popcorn out, and I waited, and I watched it, and it was so low res, I really couldn't tell you what was going on. But the next day, Dan Rather came out and said, "That's not the film I saw," which I thought was really strange. And so James Fetzer,
So now that's a very interesting explanation, isn't it? Now we're going to take this to 34 minutes.
Okay, so now here comes the president and his 6-seated limo. Usually the Secret Service guys would be running next to the limo to act as interference, right, for any bullets or anything coming through. But for some reason on this day, they decided to just kind of hang in the back and just let the car go on its own, breaking every Secret Service protocol. Also, the windows in the buildings above were all left open. That's against a Secret Service protocol too. All the windows have to be closed and locked when the president comes by, but they weren't. Just very interesting. So here we go. There's the freeway sign on the right corner. That's the Stemmons freeway sign. And there's Kennedy going behind it. Okay, so we missed the splice, but we're going to get to that later. In between these two frames was the splice. This is Kennedy coming out from behind the sign, and you can see that his right hand is now up to his neck, and this is why everyone thinks he got shot in the neck when he went behind the freeway sign. Okay, now Kennedy is taking something, doing something with his right hand. To me, he's taking something out of his coat here, and now he's in right here. Now the hand is like right here. Okay, now we missed the frame where he put it on his cheek. In between those two frames is a frame where he puts something on his cheek, and you can now see that there's something on his cheek.
Yeah, we'll see this in the video that we show after these screenshots.
So then Kennedy just kind of looks down. Now Jackie's getting interested in it. You look how far down the frame. What is Zapruder thinking? And look how big those people are. Those people are way too big. Look at Jackie's head, right? And then look at these people. They're almost the same size.
Yeah, they should be smaller because they're further away.
Blew them up. So what they did is they cut out all of this.
Look at this lady in the background right here. Look how tall she is. She's almost as tall as the two people that's standing on the sidewalk there.
That's exactly right. This has been optically screwed with. But conveniently, you can see the squib, we'll see it better, but conveniently you can't see Jackie's arm anymore because Zapruder is the worst cameraman on earth, or they optically moved it down, and that's what they did. They optically moved it down to hide Jackie's elbow action, because if you pull a string, you're gonna have elbow action, and you're gonna have wrist action, and you want to hide that because you don't want anybody to see it. But you can clearly see the thing. It's a flesh-colored object on the right cheek. Okay, there she pulled it, and you can see everybody's looking at the explosion. Every single person in that car is looking at the explosion. The background just looks strange, but think about it. You're at Dealey Plaza. This is the park. I've been there. This is the big central park of downtown. There's nobody there. There's nobody there behind. In fact, as soon as he comes behind the freeway sign, you stop seeing people pretty much altogether. Bystanders. You see 2 or 3, 4 or 5, but pretty much that's it. So now they pull the thing. JFK is been shot, they tell us. So you can see stuff flying in the air above his head. Now he falls backwards against the seat. Yes, and Oliver Stone is right. It's to the back and to the left. No doubt about it. To the next one.
Isn't it interesting? Whenever I was watching this, it looks like that whenever the squib explodes, it's reflective. Like if there's something reflecting off of his face. There shouldn't be any reflection there. Even if it's bone, the bone shouldn't cast a reflection off of his face onto the camera. So it's something. It's shiny. It's shiny.
Yeah, that's the tin plate. Remember, I told you there's a little tin plate. That's the tin plate, and if this is lousy. This is a lousy version. We're going to show you a really good version later. But it rolls up his face like an old-fashioned window shade. It rolls up his face, and on the good version, you can see it fly off his face. Now Kennedy is sinking down into the car inexplicably. I don't know why he would be doing that, except just to hide. And Jackie doesn't care about him anymore. She was really concerned, but now she doesn't really care if he falls down into the car and maybe even causes further damage to his already wounded body. She's more interested in, and here comes, what's his name?
Clint Hill.
Clint Hill. Here comes Clint Hill. Jackie looks like she's doing the last thing you would do if bullets were flying at you. Clint Hill.
Bigger target.
Yes. This thing is so staged. There's Clint. He's now getting on the car. Jackie's reaching over, it looks like, to get something. What is it? You can almost see it. It's silvery right there next to her hand. You see it?
Yep.
Okay, so then Clint Hill finally, it's about friggin' time, dude. Jeez. He finally gets into the car to help. I don't know what he's going to do. And then, yeah, he picks something up, and now he's handing it to Jackie.
Yep. You see him right there. The two of their hands touch. Yeah.
Yep. Now Jackie's getting it.
Yeah, and that's the end of the screenshots that I have for that one, and the next one.
Yeah.
Is,
Okay. So now let's at Parkland Hospital, taken by a photographer. As you can see, a neck wound and a head wound in real life give off hardly any blood at all. It's just amazing. It's two most head blood prone areas of your body outside of your heart are the head and the neck, and yet there's hardly any blood in the car. There's a little bit sprayed on the back seat, a little, but not much. Here's a color photograph, and you can see that Kennedy would be sitting here in the clear spot. So this, this is the squib blood that came out.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of blood over there. Now
Interesting visual, wasn't it? So now we're going to take this to 47.15.
N.K. Davis is a very interesting guy. He does really, really good Bigfoot research. He's a filmmaker like me, and he understands optics and filmmaking. And you know how Peter Jackson took those old World War I movies and then turned them into sleek looking, colorized, modern. I don't know if you've seen these. They can take, and they turn them into 60 frames a second with color and
clean them
everything.
up and de-blur them. Yeah.
Yeah, and all the ridges smooth out. And what the computer does, it actually fills in the frames, right? It's an AI that fills in the frames. And so you get is a much smoother, better resolution version. That's what's so great about those old movies is you can go to San Francisco in 1910 and it's done in regular motion, so it's not jerky and it's colorized, and you can see how people look. Well, he did that. He ran that the Zapruder film through that same software that Peter Jackson's using and all those other people are using.
Yeah, this is probably the best de-blurred and stabilized version of the Zapruder film that I've ever seen. Yeah,
it is.
All right,
so let's
check it out.
why don't we run through it?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's the plate. See the plate? There goes Kennedy. All right. All right, we're going to let it roll one more time. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to do it. She got that piece. No, he did not give it to her. She got it on her own.
Yeah.
There he's pulled it out of his coat. He's just stuck it on his cheek. There it is. You can see it.
Yeah.
Jackie lets him sit for a few seconds. Then she pulls the string. The plate rolls up his head. She goes, and you can see it. You can see
she put it on right there. Yeah. And his face is different right there.
Yeah, I like this one. So there you go. There you can see it really clearly. There's the squib, and that's what explodes. The thing that you're looking at, the thing that has the shadow, the thing that has the form is exactly what explodes. And it is a squib. And you got to remember, a squib had only been invented 10 years earlier. A Hollywood technician could be watching the Zapruder film in 1963 and not know what they just saw because they were not that familiar with the Zapruder film. And
let's watch it again here.
yeah, there he is. He pulls it out. He just stuck it on his cheek. He's leaning there, not doing anything. She pulls the string. The silver plate, the metal plate rolls up his head. She goes and grabs the piece of it that got off so that no one can see it. There.
Yeah. She looks like she's reaching for it, and Clint grabs it first, and then
That's what I think happened.
he
Yeah.
hands it to her.
He reaches in conveniently just as he goes. There's the blade. You can see it. You can see the blade shining in the noonday sun. And there's another thing that needs to be said about this. I'll say it in a second. You know what? This is a nice slow motion. There's that thing on his face. Then she comes over. Oh, what's going on? Oh, boom. So, what I want to say here is that what we're not considering here is that a high-powered weapon to the side of the face like that, or the side of the head, whatever, right? Half his head would be gone. I mean it. Half of his head would be gone. It doesn't matter. It could be the book depository. It could be the grassy knoll. Doesn't matter. You hit a headshot like that. There's not going to be
No head left.
Yeah, this is going to be just a gigantic cavity there, and the crap is going to be flying. I mean, flying. There's going to be brain matter everywhere. And why does Jackie act like that? You know, why does
and you can see that she's not trying to actually get out of the car. Her legs stay in the car, like backseat of the car the entire time.
Yeah, she's almost anchoring her leg there.
Yeah.
To hold herself in. If you look, there's the thing there. You can see it in the shadow. And everybody's looking. Look at everybody's looking at him. John Connolly, his wife, now Jackie's been. And it conveniently goes below the frame, right at the right moment.
And
So
a
you can't-
reflection too on his face, like that's only be described by something aluminum. Yeah.
Yeah, it's rolled up right there. You can see it. It's rolled up. He knows it's stuck to his face, so he goes down below the car to get out of view, right? And it's staged, folks. Now the question is why?
Interesting visual. Now we're going to take this to 1835 to 1 minute and 15 for you to get some interesting insight as well to keep in mind for the rest of the series and comments I make.
I want to get back to one other thing. So Oliver Stone, he writes this really, really good script, and he's got the financing for the film finally, right? And the first thing he wants to do is, of course, get the National Archives version of the Zapruder film and give it to a really, really good optical house and make a really good copy of it, right? Now, he's just watched The Men Who Killed Kennedy, right? He's all into the conspiracy of it, just like I was when I first saw The Men Who Killed Kennedy, right? And it's a good, really well done documentary. And, you know, in those days, you could not have had that done quickly. That would have taken at least a couple of months to get a good copy. To pay a high res from Super 8 was not an easy thing. So it would have taken a couple of months. So he's off in pre-production. He's got his $25 million in the bank for the production. He's off and he's casting and he's in pre-production and he's getting locations and everything. And he's going to make the conspiracy film of all time. And then, you know, his assistant goes and goes, "Hey, Ollie, we got the high-res version of the Zapruder film in. Come on over. Let's watch it tonight." And he's like really excited. Oh, man, I'm going to finally get to see it. You know? So he goes to the projection room, and they roll the doobie up, and they're passing around the doobie, and they light up the projector. And there, Oliver Stone, who used hundreds of squibs in Platoon just a few years earlier, it looks and he sees what he can't believe. He squib on the side of the face and Jackie pulling the string. And he turns off the projector and he's like, "Holy crap. I've just financed a movie That's why I'm giving him a break, okay? Because he didn't find it until after he'd already had he couldn't pay for it. It was a really expensive job to pay, so he had to wait till he got the budget. So he had to wait till the script was done and the budget was done, and then Arnon Milchan would give him the money, right? So the reaction that day must have just been like,
mind-blowing.
Hair on fire, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't show this, right? If I show this, everyone will see it, right? And so I'm giving him a break on this. I really believe that's how these events happen, because that's how it happened with me when I saw his version. I saw the squib immediately and went, oh my God. And his version is better, by the way, than MK Davis's version. In his version, you can actually see the squib has a form, and you can see a I don't know, it has some kind of skeletal structure on the center of it. And of course, I don't have that film anymore because somebody, whoever loaded it up, it must have been one of his technicians, right? Probably put it up on YouTube thinking it was a really cool thing. Then he found out about it, or somebody found out about it. Take that down, right? So they took it down, and now you can't find it. But that's the version I saw. Now, I'm really good friends with his son, Sean Stone. And I'd love to get Sean Stone's reaction to all this, but I am cutting you a break, Oliver Stone. I believe you got caught with your pants down. You didn't understand what was going on until it was too late. You saw the low-res versions. You didn't understand it. You did exactly what you're supposed to do as a filmmaker. You know, by making a high-res version of that, but you saw it, you realized that you were not going to make the greatest conspiracy film of all time. You were going to end up making the greatest expose of a hoax incident, and you weren't going to do that because Arnon Milchan and the mafia behind him isn't going to let that happen. And so he was forced to re-edit the Zapruder film so you think you saw it, but you didn't. And what he did, and I'm not going to show it because I don't want to violate copyrights. So get the movie JFK. It's about 3/4 of the way through at the trial. Kevin Costner is playing Jim Garrison, and they show you the Zapruder film. But they do it so cleverly, so deftly, that they literally have like a thing in front of Kennedy during the 4 seconds as you can actually see the squib. There's actually an obstacle. It's really clever. They actually edit around. First off, Oliver Stone doesn't mention the neck wound at all. Warren Commission thinks there's a neck wound. The conspiracy people think there's a neck wound. Oliver Stone completely does not mention a neck wound at all. And when Kevin Costner is telling us what to look for and the Zapruder film, that's because Oliver Stone served in Vietnam and knows damn well what a neck wound looks like. And he's like, wait a minute, where's the blood? What's going on here? So he knew immediately when he saw the neck wound that something was wrong. And then when he saw him put the squib up on his face, he's like, holy crap, this is a magic act. And he was forced to edit around it. But if you want to see him, which means he knows, because he wouldn't edit around. If you paid $1 million to have the 28 seconds of the Zapruder film turned into a high-res film, you're going to show every second of it. You're not going to cut around it. All that money is up there on the screen, and he cuts the very vital 4 or 5 seconds where Kennedy has the squib on his face and he's just sitting there kind of strangely in the car. He's no longer waving. He's no longer doing anything. He's just sitting there until Jackie comes over. That's all cut out. That's all cut out. He cuts it from the time that Kennedy comes from around the sign and then to the explosion of the head, which, you know, is very dramatic. But again, Oliver Stone served in Vietnam. He was in combat in Vietnam. He knows what a bloody head wound is from a high-powered rifle. I mean,
Oliver Stone. Wow, right? So what do you think? I really do find the Hollywood squib effect a real possibility for the frontal head wound compelling. How about you? Okay, so now I want to go back to the previous video, the JFK Truth the mob, CIA, and the 8 paid assassins, YouTube, to this Parkland hospital scene where the commentator states clearly this fact.
They knew that they had to forensically control the body from the moment the shots were fired. And the moment Kennedy entered Trauma Room 1, that control had to be relinquished. Although they had CIA agents placed in the emergency unit, these people were not aware of the throat wound, which could hardly be seen because it was so tiny. It was at this moment that all the Dallas doctors and nurses like Aubrey Bell made a mental note of this very obvious sign of a frontal entry shot.
At Parkland Hospital, quote, that control had to be relinquished, end quote, aware of, and now an explanation for the frontal head wound. But wait, what? What weren't they aware of? The small throat wound. What I call, in my next conjecture, the deep throat wound. Wow, right? But more on that later. Okay, so again, an exit strategy with backup contingencies is previously whiteboard planned, prepared in advance. Air Force 2 carrying the President of the United States of America, JFK, arrives prior to Air Force 1 into chaos with multiple ambulances and multiple U.S. military helicopters in the ready and at its arrival. An explanation for cause of death is now provided for the world to see and to witness, a head kill shot of the President of the United States, and yet a small deep throat wound that only a very small, limited number would ever be aware of or encounter. Thus, a prearranged, pre-orchestrated devil in the detail to expose and to catch the chief orchestrator and co-conspirators, accomplices to the legal definition conspiracy to assassinate the President of the United States of America. A second, well-disguised deep throat wound. Moreover, to catch, flush out the threat from inside, the insider and or insiders. And by the way, and which I find very curiously interesting, just as a sidebar mention here, British producer Francis R. Connolly neither mentions nor references in either of his documentaries Watergate, let alone Deep Throat. But more on that in a bit. So what possibility does all this make feasible? My conjecture? A prearranged, pre-orchestrated, pre-positioned cadaver at Parkland Hospital in the trauma room, and it is not JFK's. Ready to proceed with part 2?